You're listening to the Urban Sports Scene. I'm Wole. The homie Ray Jeezy's out, but you can also check us out on our website, which is www.urbansportscene.com. It's been a busy football day. I tell you, I'm going to watch all football games today. So I'm getting my life in order. I've done a bunch. If y'all seen my face all day doing podcasts, doing live streams. So this is the last one for today. Anyway, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and other podcast platforms. Just search the Urban Sports Scene. Make sure you subscribe to the Urban Sports Scene YouTube channel. If you're on here right now, hit that red subscribe button. Also like this video. Don't forget to tweet us at Urban Sports Scene. Hit us up on Twitter at Urban Sports. Hit us up on IG and TikTok at Urban Sports Scene, and also like our Urban Sports Scene Facebook page. Also join our Urban Sports Scene Facebook group. Search Urban Sports Scene, sports bloggers, sports podcasters, and sports debates. And you can check out our weekly NFL picks on the Football Garbage Time website. Just go to www.footballgarbagetime.com. It's part of the Urban Sports Scene versus Football Garbage Time Pick'em Challenge. I was recently on their podcast show, so go to the Football Garbage Time podcast and check it out. Great guys, great fellas. Ryan, Hakun Wong, D Mitty, great individuals. So we'll make sure you go ahead and check them out. All right, man, it's time for the pregame. Here's what we have on tap. Locked on college football. Spencer McLaughlin will join me to talk about the college football national championship game between Notre Dame and Ohio State. You all know that I'm a big Michigan fan, so yeah, you already know who I'm really rooting for in this matchup. It's pretty easy for me. But anyway, okay, let me introduce Spencer into the chat. What's going on? Hold on. Here we go. What's going on, Spencer?
Hey, man. Good to be on with you. I didn't know you were a big Michigan guy, but that really does make Monday night an easy decision. You know, I'm watching the NFL playoffs go through and thinking like, oh, who am I rooting for? Who do I want in this, that? And yeah, that makes it that makes it pretty simple. That makes it about as simple as it gets.
It does. You know, my Super Bowl was the last game of the season, November. So I felt pretty good about what happened in that game.
You also had a Super Bowl type event the season prior, so
yeah, that too. Look,
it's all right.
Look, I was playing with house money going into this season. I knew when Jim left, it would be hard. You know what I mean? It'd be difficult, just because I felt like Jim when he was here, folks. You know, when he struggled initially, people didn't. Well, I say struggle, but when they didn't reach the heights that people wanted him to. I was like, do y'all remember before Jim got here how Michigan was? Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a good friend who's also one of my broadcasting mentors who is a big Michigan guy, and he was for years lamenting that Jim Harbaugh was still around. Why is Harbaugh still? Harbaugh's never going to do like early on, of course, first couple of years, okay, but then Harbaugh's never going to get over the hump. Harbaugh's never going to beat Ohio State. Harbaugh's never going to win the Big Ten. Harbaugh's never going to do this, that, and the other thing. It turns out if you're just like a smidge patient, it can really, really pay off with a magical year. I was never in the fire Harbaugh camp. I was in the he's a very good coach sort of camp. I think he just proved that again. Going to the NFL, year one, Chargers go from, what are they, a 5-win team or whatever to a playoff team. And yeah, they played like crap in the playoffs. Okay. Year one.
Exactly.
Year one. So they need to get my guy Justin Herbert some players that can, catch the football.
Oh, totally agree. I love Justin Herbert. I do. I felt bad for him for his last game, but I'm with you. He needs more playmakers.
He did not play well. I will be fair. He did not play a good game. His receivers still somehow played a worse football game.
No, I agree. You saw it throughout the season though. Like he had to be ultra special because they didn't make life easy for him. Put it that way.
No, you know I mean the Quentin Johnston pick was a whiff, and I mean he's got a ton of potential, but the dude cannot catch. And then Will Dissly drops 2 huge passes in the wild card round against the Texans, and it's like, no one's gonna. I hope no one watches that Ravens game and goes, "Man, Lamar Jackson stinks." And what, I don't know. Overtime was staring you in the face if Mark Andrews catches the most wide open. Jim Nantz started calling it as if he had caught it because he was so open. And you know what? It's tough conditions.
Yeah,
I get it. You're paid a few $1 million to catch the easy ones and the tough ones.
Yeah, you're all pro tight end. I mean, this is what you get paid the big bucks for.
Yeah.
That was I made it. It was in a chat. I guess I was doing it with one of my friends I play basketball with. I didn't know he was such a Lamar Jackson hater. I guess he was a big Lamar Jackson hater, and he was saying that pass that wasn't a great pass, and I was like, huh?
I was literally just messing with my buddy about that because I've been a Lamar Jackson critic. Like I'm not a huge. I obviously he's a really good player. I'm not Skip Bayless and LeBron here, but people will put him at like when he wins the MVP. I'm like he's not the quarterback I'd most want to have in the league, and I don't think he's good enough throwing the ball in key spots. But he certainly was against Buffalo in tough conditions. He was good enough, and I mean that's what it comes down to sometimes. So that's a tough one. But I'm happy for the Bills.
Yeah. Like you said though, like if you watch the whole game, that was like you could. Folks shouldn't put that one on Lamar, but also in the same time, to be honest with you, just like you're talking about in the postseason, even with Justin Herbert, like a lot of dudes are having drops. They're having the drops, and they're not helping their quarterback out in this situation.
The drops and just an inability to make tough catches. You know, it's like it's got to be a perfect throw every single time, as his offensive line is getting blitzed for the first time all season. So
it's tough, man. It really is.
The NFL's hard. Turns out the NFL's hard.
Very hard, and postseason doesn't make it easy because you can tell who wants it, who's not scared of the moment, and who's kind of like who are pretty much scared of the moment, like who's not really for it. So you can tell when you're watching these playoff games. But before we talk about the national championship game, can you tell our listeners about your podcast? I want to make sure folks who are viewing it, may be seeing you for the first time, they can know all about your podcast.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, hosting Locked On College Football, daily podcast on the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth. I love the NFL, but it pales in comparison to my love for college football. I think you'd see that comes out every day. I also host Locked On Ducks, same deal, YouTube podcasts, keeping you up to date with all things Oregon because I'm an Oregon native. So, awesome. College football is the best, and I am very sad that it's about to end.
I know it's been good. We'll talk about that. I have questions about the playoff system. I want to get your thoughts about it too. In terms of at the end, in terms of if you're a fan of whatnot of it. But the college football national championship game goes down tomorrow night at 7:30 our time, Eastern Standard Time for us. What are some of the key matchups that you'll be looking for into this matchup between Ohio State and Notre Dame?
Well, you'll appreciate this. If you're Notre Dame, you have to Michigan the hell out of this game. Exactly. You have to. That's the only way that you win. Even that doesn't guarantee a win because Notre Dame was dominant against Indiana. It was a 10-point win, but it wasn't, that close throughout most of the game. And they won a tight one, but comfortably at the end against Georgia. And then they won a close one against Penn State. Kind of as they have progressed through each round, the level of competition, I think, has ticked up. And the game has gotten tighter. Well, the level of competition's ticking up again, and my confidence level in Notre Dame to win this game is really low. I mean, really low, because there is one way and one way only. There's only one version of this game, or one vision I have of how Notre Dame scores more points than Ohio State on Monday night. It's there.
Yeah.
I just see so many different ways that Ohio State can attack you, that Ohio State can make plays, that Ohio State can win the game. I see one way for Notre Dame, and they've been great with that formula throughout the playoff. I just don't think Ohio State's going to let them do that because they have so much young and veteran talent, but particularly veteran talent on this team. They have to They have to keep Ohio State under 20 points. I cannot see how Notre Dame goes out there and puts up over 20 points on this Ohio State defense. So I think there's a really narrow path for Notre Dame, but I think Ohio State wins. I think Ohio State covers the 8.5-point spread as well. I think the Buckeyes, much to your chagrin, most likely will roll to a national championship.
I know. I've kind of looked at the matchup myself, and I'm like, it's like I don't see a way, to be honest with you myself. But I do agree with you. That was like my thought process. Was that if they can play a Michigan style against Ohio State, they would have a chance to stay in the game. I'm a belief that, and I'm just not Ohio State bashing or whatnot, but I'm in the belief when I look at this game, if the best thing, like you said, totally agree with everything you said. If they could play that style and get it tight in the fourth quarter, just what we've seen with Ohio State, that's the time where the pressure gets to like Ryan Day and company, and then maybe you can kind of get some mistakes out of them. Will Howard, maybe you can get some mistakes out of them. if the game is tight in the fourth. But if Ohio State is rolling, like you said, Ohio State is way more talented than Notre Dame. It's just we're talking about pro players, guys who can play on Sundays compared to some guys in Notre Dame where they can make an NFL roster, but say a guy who's going to shine like some of these other guys in Ohio State. So I'm with you. I just think that this match it's going to be hard, but it's only one way. I personally don't see like Riley Leonard, throwing for like 500 yards or anything like that.
I don't think he's going to hit 200 yards in this game. At least not when it, is in doubt. Maybe Ohio State gets a big lead and then they start playing prevent to chew the clock and, he picks up some yards there. But, I mean, this is not a Notre Dame passing attack that has at all been consistent in the way that it produces, and it doesn't produce at a high level. They average less than 200 passing yards per game. Can you name the last national champion that won with that few passing yards per game on average that was under 200 yards?
I'm trying to think. Maybe would it be us? No.
Nope. Michigan was over, I think, at around 212 per game.
We were barely over. I'm about to say we'd probably be. I was going to say, I can't tell you. I can't remember.
2009 Alabama is the last time that a team averaged less than 200 passing yards per game and won the national championship. That is not going to change. Now, the good news for Notre Dame, their secondary is really good.
Yes.
Really, really good. And I think they've got plenty of talent on that side of the ball. I think their safeties can make some really good plays. I think the best part about their defense is they are well schemed and well coached. I never see them making the big mistake. I never see them wildly out of position. If you're going to score on them, you just have to beat them. You just have to go out there, make plays, win a 1v1, because they're not going to beat themselves. Oregon's defense was really good all year, but stumbled, of course, in the last couple of games of the season. And other teams made plays, Penn State and Ohio State for sure. They also had self-inflicted wounds. They had silly penalties. They had missed tackles. They had blown coverages as well. I mean, they literally, on a 40-plus yard touchdown, turned Jeremiah Smith loose, and he was one-on-one with a safety who's standing in the middle of the field. Like, that's not what that coverage was supposed to look like. They blew the coverage. And so those are the things that Notre Dame, I think, has done a great job staying away from all season, and throughout this playoff run in particular. They have won it with defense, special teams, field position, and then doing enough running the football. But can you just line up and run and go up and down the field against Ohio State? No, you have to have balance. And the teams that have scored more than 20 points this year on this Ohio State defense, there have been 3 games and only 2 teams. One of them was Tennessee that put up 21, and by the way, struggled out of the gate.
Yes.
Got it going a bit, had 10 points at the half and then kind of got there. But again, not a huge offensive day. Oregon, who the second time around didn't score until the last play of the first half. Yeah. But the first time around in Eugene put up 32 points and made a bunch of mistakes doing so as well. But that's the only day in which this Buckeye defense has looked vulnerable. When they have struggled or lost games, it's because the offense didn't do enough. Nebraska, they didn't score enough. Michigan, they didn't score enough. Texas, their offense slowed down, only had 14 points at the half, 7 before that screen pass that broke for a touchdown. But they got in their own way a lot in that Texas game. So that's the side of the ball that, luckily for Notre Dame, plays into their strength. But there's so much balance for this Buckeyes team. I just think it's going to be too tough for Notre Dame.
It's definitely going to be tough. So in terms of QB play is always essential when you're trying to win a national championship or winning a championship in any in football in general. But so which team do you feel like has the edge at quarterback between the two, Howard? And,
Ohio State. I think it's clearly Ohio State. Will Howard is playing the best football of his career. And I expected him to have a career coming into the season because he was going to have the best supporting cast around him from a coaching and talent standpoint that he'd ever had. And he's put up career numbers. He's over 70% completion for the first time. And the way he played against Texas, I think should concern Buckeye fans a little.
Yeah.
But of the 3 playoff games, I've got 2 data points where he was darn near flawless. He did not miss throws against Oregon, and he made some great ones. The second touchdown he threw to Emeka Egbuka literally could not be placed any better. Corner's in good position, gets his hand on the ball, but can't get enough of it. Abuka makes a tough catch and hauls it in for a touchdown. Those sorts of plays are not going to come easily against a good Notre Dame secondary, but if Ohio State gets back to that formula of take some downfield shots, let your receivers go make a play, and find the one-on-one matchups and take them, then I don't know how you cover a receiving core in which Carnell Tate is distinctly the third best guy. That's that's a tough trio to stop. And we saw an NFL trio of wideouts carry Washington with Michael Penix to the national championship game last year. And we saw LSU win with a trio of NFL wide receivers and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Those guys are pretty good.
Yes.
And Terrence Marshall, who was also an early round pick. Like that formula of having three guys. Most teams have got one elite cover guy and one good cover guy. Who's got a number 3 cover guy in the secondary that you feel like can go toe-to-toe with an NFL receiver, rep in and rep out, and keep him under 50 yards for 4 quarters in a big spot? There's just really nobody that I feel like can do it. So I like Ohio State a lot, and they're just a tough. They're a really, really tough matchup.
And you kind of talked about it though, but I just go into more detail with it. If you're a Fighting Irish fan, if you're a Notre Dame fan, what is it is essentially would keep Notre Dame in the game? Would it be more Ohio State making mistakes, or would it be Notre Dame kind of winning the time of possession? What would keep Notre Dame into this game, say into the fourth quarter, where they had an opportunity? I'm not even going to say win, but had an opportunity to pull this game out.
So I like both points that you raised there because they've both been on my mind going into this game. The Irish have to be able to run the ball. If they can't run the football, this is going to get ugly. I mean ugly, really fast, because no matter how good Notre Dame's defense is, it'll be on the field too much.
Good point. And
it'll wear down. So I think Notre Dame has to be able to run the ball, control the clock, and stick with their same formula. Run the ball control, couple of key passes, run Riley Leonard, special teams, field position, do all of those little things, because you cannot go toe-to-toe in a shootout here. You're not going to have explosive runs over and over again to go up and down the field, and you are not going to be able to suddenly concoct a passing game that has more success than what Oregon had in the Rose Bowl or the first time around, because Oregon's got a better passing quarterback in Dylan Gabriel and better wide receivers as well. And they had a bunch of success the first time, but then the second time in the playoff, as the season progressed and Jim Knowles made some tweaks and adjustments to what they were doing on that side of the ball, all of a sudden you can't do anything on this Ohio State defense. It's the best in the country, and I just don't see how Notre Dame can suddenly come up with that formula to, we're slinging around the yard, Riley Leonard's going to go for 375 and 4 scores. I don't understand how that could possibly take place. So they have to be able to run the football. They have to use their offense to help their defense keep Ohio State's offense on the sideline. And you cannot afford, you have to play incredibly clean football. Now, I don't have doubts that Notre Dame can do that because they've been mostly a clean team. Leonard's had a couple picks here and there, but they don't make a bunch of dumb self-inflicted mistakes. And on the other side, Ohio State did against Texas. I kept waiting for Ohio State to blow that game open. Yeah. They should have. They didn't, but they should have. And the reason they didn't was they kept false starting, holding penalty. Travion Henderson could have been ejected from that game in the second half when he hit a guy in the face. It was kind of like a forceful shove.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they didn't say it was a full-on punch. But he could have been thrown out of the game. But that's a 15-yard penalty that derailed the drive. There were 2 other penalties that derailed drives for Ohio State. Will Howard made a bad read to Quinshon Judkins. He pulls the ball out instead of just handing it off. He gives it to Judkins, and I don't know what Howard was even looking at with the read. It was a give read all the way on that play, and it wasn't a specifically designed quarterback run because Quinshon Judkins was jumping in the hole going, "Oh my gosh, why didn't you give me the ball?" Because he had a lane and he was one-on-one with a safety. and maybe he gets tackled by the safety. But if he doesn't, he's scoring a touchdown, and instead, Ohio State didn't get any points on that drive. They either didn't get any points or got a field goal. I don't think they got any points there. So those are the sorts of things that slowed them down against Texas that you have to hope they do. Because if they don't, it'll be Oregon or Tennessee all over again. Because when you've got a quarterback who's as dialed as Will Howard is and receivers that are that good, I don't really care who you are. Unless you dominate up front like Michigan did to Washington last year, you can't stop them.
Yeah, so on the flip side, I want Ohio State fans to know, like, I'm fair. So on the flip side, for Ohio State, what are some of the things they need to do early so we won't have is Ohio State not bringing their A game type of mode like we saw against Texas? What are some of the things that you think that are key for them to get off the bricks early, for them to say, all right, to put out their dominance, to be honest with you, lack of a better term?
Yeah, it's got to come with the chunk passing plays. Those are the signs for me that signal Ohio State is locked in, because that means they are getting the protection they need up front from the offensive line, which has been marvelous over the last few weeks, and Will Howard's barely been touched, number one. And number two, that means Chip Kelly and Ryan Day are seeing things correctly and finding the matchups to get those downfield shots. Because against Oregon, they did. And Oregon's had a great defensive line this year. A great defensive line. They couldn't really get to Will Howard. Why? Because they were in such a good rhythm. They were dominating the scheme battle in that game to an extent where it didn't matter how effective you were going to be rushing the quarterback, because, well, he's got the ball out in less than 2 seconds, whether it's a 5-yard hitch or taking a downfield shot, whatever it was. They had the right play calls at the right times, and if those are clicking early, Notre Dame fans are going to sit quietly in their seats for 3.5 quarters.
I know it really is. I agree. I think that, and also I just feel like their pair of running backs are so explosive,
so good.
I just feel like
Henderson's crazy.
Henderson's
good.
insane. He's insane.
Yeah, his speed is nuts.
Yeah,
that's not even his best quality. If you go watch that screen pass that he took to the house, his vision and patience mixed with his explosiveness is outrageously good. Yeah, and he does it all the time, where he can use, he can have that kind of Le'Veon Bell pause. Yeah. But the explosion that comes after that
is crazy.
Crazy good.
He may be the best out of the Ohio. I've seen a lot of Ohio State running backs. Out of the Ohio State running backs that I've seen, and it may not translate to the NFL, but
I don't know how he
think it
wouldn't.
Would.
I think he reminds me of Travis Etienne.
Yeah, that's a good comp. That's a very good comp.
Yeah,
he's going to translate. But like, I thought J.K. Dobbins was really good in Ohio State in terms of his speed and how he would kind of like take it one level. His acceleration was crazy for a bigger guy, but this kid is insane to me. Like, TreVeyon Henderson is insane.
It's just a burst. The burst that he has is so impressive. You give him a lane, he's going to go through it. He's still got power to him, but he's just reminds me a lot of Etienne when he was at Clemson. And I mean, those guys just look faster than everybody else who's already really fast on TV. So I think that the way that they can incorporate their weapons in so many different ways is part of what makes them difficult to stop. And Texas had a great game plan, but I go back to, that game plan was good and well executed by Texas, no doubt about it. However, Ohio State still had chances to blow that game open, and they got in their own way. That's the only thing that has stopped Ohio State this year has been Ohio State. Either poor game planning, poor execution, or making sloppy mistakes. Those are the ways that they have been slowed down or actually slowed down. Sorry, I made up a word there. Slowed down or actually lost this season. And you have to have that. If they do, Notre Dame is good enough to make you pay for it. But if they go out there and start hitting shots early, ball game. Speaking
of game plan, that goes down to the coaches. Between Irish coach Marcus Freeman and Buckeyes coach Ryan Day, who do you feel like has the edge in this matchup?
I think the answer is Marcus Freeman. And I look at what he has done over the last 3 games. And Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles, that's a high-level coach, offensive, defensive coordinator trio, as good as you've got in the entire sport. But Marcus Freeman, Al Golden, Mike Denbrock are not a slum of a trio themselves. And I think that Notre Dame has overachieved to an extent. Now, I thought they would. Coming into the playoff, I didn't have a preseason national championship game pick. I thought Georgia would win it all, but I thought Beck would stay healthy. But even with Beck, I think it was clear they were not going to win the national championship this year. But when the playoff began, I thought Notre Dame would win every game. This was, on that side of the bracket, how I thought it would go. I thought they would beat Indiana, and I thought they would cover. I thought they would beat Georgia, and I think they were slight underdog. And I thought they would beat Penn State in a close one. So it's been exactly what I've expected so far. But that doesn't mean that Marcus Freeman isn't doing just a heck of a coaching job. I don't know if you're a golfer at all, but Marcus Freeman is trying to win the Masters with some of his clubs being wooden. And Ohio State has got all of the latest technology that gives them that extra boost. It's the recruiting difference, right? And Notre Dame has a bunch of talented players. They've recruited at a high level, but Ohio State's roster was always capable of getting to this spot. Notre Dame's roster is only capable of being in this position if you have masterful coaching over the last 3 playoff games in key situations. There has been no one more consistent situationally, schematically, avoiding mistakes over this playoff stretch than Notre Dame. I think if you took Marcus Freeman and swapped him with Ryan Day, Ohio State still wins the game, and they might even win it more than what I think Ryan Day will beat Marcus Freeman by. But I do think that talent is too much, and the coordinators are really good, and they're doing a heck of a job for the Buckeyes, and I think Freeman is great. Really, really good. There's a guy who lost to Northern Illinois and Marshall and a bad Stanford team, which, back to our conversation about Jim Harbaugh and patience. I mean, everyone wants to write somebody. Marcus Freeman started his career 0-3 as a head coach. He lost the Fiesta Bowl to Oklahoma State. He lost to Ohio State to begin the season, and then he lost to Marshall. Those were his first 3 games as a head coach. And guess what? Here he is, outperform. I think there are only a handful of coaches in all of college football that could take this Notre Dame team to the national championship game. And Freeman is one of them. I don't know that there are that many, frankly. I think plenty could get Notre Dame to the playoff. I'm not trying to say they're completely void of talent, but to say that their roster, top to bottom, is on par with Ohio State's, it simply is not.
Yeah, I agree. I thought even them beating Georgia was a shocker for me, but I know they lost back.
Georgia's offense since they lost Todd Monken has been...
Yeah, Monken's done great in Baltimore,
Yes. He did not coach Mark Andrews to drop a 2-point conversion. I love when conversations get, void of context like that. Oh, man, this coach can't win this game. Like, do you think that basketball coach went up there and said, why don't you go ahead and miss that clutch free throw there? We're down 2 with 8 seconds left. You've got a 1-and-1. Why don't you go ahead and miss that? Like, is that what you think happened? Like, sometimes guys got to go make plays, and Mark Andrews didn't, but Marcus Freeman's guys have.
Yeah, you know what, Spencer? I always say that's the one thing about debates nowadays. Folks don't care about content. Context. They don't at all. It's crazy.
Generally not.
I know, which is wild to me.
Well, that's what we're here for.
I know, right? All right. So for you, between these 2 teams, say on the flip side of either these. Say if Notre Dame wins, say if Ohio State wins, and we probably both believe Ohio State's going to win. But still, that's to entertain ourselves in terms of if Notre Dame wins. Who would be the unsung heroes for either side?
Ooh, the unsung heroes for Notre Dame. It would be the offensive line.
Okay.
Unquestionably as a unit, because they have to be able to run the ball, whether it's with Jeremiah Love or Price or Leonard. Doesn't matter. They have to run it or they won't be able to move it consistently. This Ohio State secondary is just way too good, and they're really good against the run as well. The safeties are really, Ransom and Downs are just absolute killers. So the Notre Dame offensive line. For Ohio State, a lot of different ways I go with this, but I'm going to go with Cody Simon, the linebacker. mixed with Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle. And I picked those two guys because, again, everyone gets involved at some level in all sorts of plays and such. But if you have a strong run defense, you have to be good on the interior of your defensive line, and you have to be good at linebacker. And those two guys, I think, are playing the best football of their career, and Ohio State people will tell you that. And the way that they play to take away that rushing attack for Notre Dame is going to be huge. Williams against Texas was a menace. I mean, he was everywhere on the interior of that defensive line. Everyone knows Jack Sawyer because he's experienced, and JT Tuimoloau because he's a big NFL prospect, and I get that. Those guys deserve their flowers. But Tyleik Williams has been the unsung hero there, and Cody Simon, who played a heck of a game. He had a team-high 11 tackles in the Rose Bowl against Oregon and did just yeoman's work in the middle there for Jim Knowles, the defense coordinator. So I'd go with those two guys. You know, there are plenty of that's not to say the big names aren't going to make big plays. I'd be surprised if Jeremiah Smith isn't more involved than he was in the matchup with Texas. But I think that those two players defensively for Ohio State have been really, really good. And if they have a good game again, Notre Dame's got problems.
Okay, cool. All right, so we pretty much, I know Ohio State's your prediction, but give me a score for that game.
Oh, I actually haven't thought about my score yet. I have an idea. I can't see Notre Dame getting more than 17 points. I'm going to give them 13. I'll take Ohio State 28-13.
Okay, well, Notre Dame fans ain't that bad. I was thinking they'd get like 30 something.
Yeah, I trust the Notre Dame defense. I think it is a good unit that can make a play, maybe pick off Will Howard here or there. But it's the Notre Dame offense. I think it is more likely that Notre Dame scores less than 10 points than it is Ohio State scores fewer than 20.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense then. So. All right, so I want to go back to this question about the college football playoff as a whole, because I've kind of liked it. I'm not gonna lie to you. For some straight, I didn't think I was gonna like it.
There are good things about it. That doesn't mean that it is good.
No, I know there's some things I didn't like about it. So I won't. But in terms of how it played out, you got your core good teams in the Final Four, or what you want to deem good teams, whatever. But you have 4 teams in the Final Four of blue bloods. So I kind of vibed that. But for you. First off, were you a fan of it as a whole in terms of your overall opinion of it?
No.
And if you had tweaks of it, if you could fix it, how would you fix it?
So I never would have expanded to 12. That's too many.
Yeah,
and I think 6 is probably the right number. What I would like to see, and you'll never go backwards. I don't think there's ever been a playoff in a sport anywhere that has expanded the playoff and then rolled it back. You know, the NBA expanded it with the play-in tournament, and Major League Baseball expanded. Now, I think Major League Baseball's expansion was actually pretty warranted and good. But I think what they've done with the wild card round is really good. But for college football, my ideal playoff would be a 6-team playoff, and you would have the top 2 teams get byes and home playoff games. And the first round games would be neutral site contests. So you would have 3 play 6 and 4 play 5, and those would be neutral site games. And then you would have to go to the home campuses of the top 2 seeds for a playoff game, because that, again, re-emphasizes the importance of the regular season, which has always been the best part of college football, and it's always been better than any other sport, and we are minimizing it, not getting rid of its importance, but we are minimizing how important the regular season is in college football with a 12-team playoff, which I'll get to in a sec. And then you would have the neutral site national championship game at the Rose Bowl every single year. The Rose Bowl game should be the national championship, and then you could rotate those first couple of playoff games with, the Fiesta, the Peach, the Cotton, the Orange, and the Sugar, and just rotate them around. But that's my ideal playoff. Now, we're not going to get that, of course. So in the 12-team format, what you should have is automatic bids for conference champions, the 5 highest ranked, but not automatic buys.
Gotcha.
Because what we saw this year is, hey, Boise State's had a great year. I have no problem with them being in the playoff. They had a good win against Washington State. They had a really good loss against Oregon. They won the rest of their games. They beat UNLV twice. UNLV was not a slouch. UNLV beat Syracuse, who beat Miami. Like, you can keep rolling the transitive property and whatnot. Like, I am perfectly fine with Boise State having the access to the playoff that they did. They should not have had a bye. Of course, that ended up being a detriment for everyone as the bye teams went 0-4. But let's reserve judgment on that until we get a second season worth of evidence there. But I think you should get automatic bids, but not automatic buys, because I think we all understand, and the committee demonstrated this, just because you won a conference championship doesn't mean you are more deserving of a bye or of a higher seed than someone else. So that's the first thing. Second thing is when you have your first round matchups, you have got to either reseed or just play them based on their ranking and not have this adjustment and moving up to where Ohio State is the 8th seed, but Ohio State was in the final college football playoff rankings. I believe even after the Michigan loss, they were not 8th.
Yeah.
No one was going to have them 8th. How could they have been behind Penn State, who they beat head to head? And I know Penn State had one more win, but I just 11-2 versus 10-2 with a head-to-head win on the home field. Ohio State should be the higher ranked team. And I think we all know and understand that. But we had these silly rules and automatic tiebreakers and whatnot. So either don't give the automatic buys or reseed after the first round, and give to the teams that get buys, give them a home playoff game, because that is clearly the ultimate reward. Because what you saw, now the thinking behind the playoff committee and the television networks was, well, we want to keep the importance of the conference championship games. We want people to watch them. We want people to attend them. Okay, fine. I understand that. I actually kind of like that mindset. What you have done instead is the opposite in some instances, to where now I guarantee you, myself included, every Oregon fan in the world will look back and say, boy, I wish we'd lost to Penn State in the Big Ten championship game.
There you go.
They would have been better off losing the game. Yeah. Nobody won at Autzen Stadium this year. You wouldn't have had as long of a layoff, and you would have been playing teams who we know, based on the committee's own rankings, are teams that are not as good as the ones that Oregon ended up, or the one that Oregon ended up facing, right? And again, that's a matchup that I'm not here to make all the excuses in the world, because the first thing Oregon fans should think about for that game is Oregon got outcoached across the board. They got outcoached, out-schemed, and Ohio State was more talented at a couple spots, but mostly they got outcoached. But for the playoff format itself, you do not want to go into conference championship weekend and have people thinking, wouldn't it be better if we lose this? So that's how I would fix it. Is I'd say give buys to the 4 most deserving teams, not just the conference champions, and then either reseed or just rank the teams in the order that you would. Because I think if they had done the ranking and not reseeding this year, I think Oregon would have played like the winner of Indiana and,
which is fair.
Indiana and somebody else. I forget exactly how the graphic looked, but there are ways to fix it. I'm never optimistic that college football will get it right, because I was against playoff expansion in the first place. I would have kept it at 4 before I went to 12.
Me too.
I would have gone back to the BCS before I went to 12. 12 is just 12 to me is too many, and you had the 2 biggest upsets in the Power 4. Or at least 2 of the 3, because you have to throw Alabama, Vanderbilt in there. Yeah. But I got to argue the 2 biggest upsets of the college football season didn't end up stopping those teams from making the national championship game. That's where my mindset comes from. Is the regular season is where college football's value has always been derived. Yeah. And what you did is say, we're going to give everybody more leeway here to make it look more like the NFL. I love the NFL. I watch it every week. I'm watching the playoffs. I'm a big Seahawks fan. Like, I love the NFL. But in no world is there as much urgency in the NFL as in college football.
Agreed.
You need look no further than the fact that the Chiefs can bench their guys the last week of the regular season because they don't have to win to get in, because they're already there. Or the Buffalo Bills are going to the AFC Championship game. How many regular season games did they lose? 3, 4, 5? They were playing the Ravens, who lost 5 games. It doesn't make it an uninteresting product. It makes it a different type of product.
I agree.
Where college football, when you had the BCS and even the 14 playoff, was essentially
every game was
a 13-week long, with a conference championship. It was a 14-week long double elimination tournament.
Facts.
That's essentially how it was set up. We have removed that, and it's unfortunate.
I'm with you, Spencer. I'm with you because I do agree with that. There's something about college football where
It's different.
The regular season was every matchup was so intense, and then so I had stared away from college football this year for a little bit, and then when I got back into it, I got every once I would glance.
You get back into it around the second quarter of the Ohio State game.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're going through the season like, after boy, we're getting our butts kicked by Illinois. I think it's time to look to 2025, fellas.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you where it started for real. Especially when we got our ass kicked by Texas, that's when it was like, oh shoot, God, all right, this is gonna be a long year. Like, yeah, I was like, oh, okay, it's that year now. Okay, then it was like,
the Illinois. I thought they were gonna lose big to Texas, but the USC game was, of course, amazing. Yeah. I thought they'd lose that one too. But
I thought we were too. I thought we were.
But then the Illinois, once you lost to Illinois in the manner in which you did, I think that was the point where Michigan fans were like, "All right, this is just not." But then you got the win against Ohio State. Like, it's kind of a perfect 2-year run.
It is
for Michigan fans. Win the national championship and then beat Ohio State as a 20-point road underdog. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. But it does. Again, that game that should have deprived Ohio State the opportunity to go compete for a national championship. I agree.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what.
But guess what? Yeah. We expanded the playoffs, so it didn't matter. It did not matter, and I think that sucks.
I do. I agree with that. I do feel like, even though I enjoy the excitement because it kind of reminds me of NCAA tournament type of vibes, basketball in terms of basketball. It gave me some type of vibes with it. But in terms of, I do agree with you. It's like you're watering down the product. You know what I mean? The product
you haven't taken away the greatness entirely, but you have diluted it a little bit. You took a can of Coke, you poured out the top quarter of it, and you poured in some water. It still tastes good, but is it as great as it was before? Nope, it is not. I'm still drinking. No, I'm not a Coke drinker, so it's a bad analogy, but like you get what I'm going for.
Yeah, but the issue is that because usually in college football, and for me, I always look at college football like, I mean, I know people complain about who makes the championship game, whatever.
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun. Well, that's what makes it fun.
But I would say this though, to be real with you, I always felt like they kind of got it right. Like,
I thought the committee absolutely got it right this year. Yeah. I was really glad they put in SMU instead of Alabama. And then Alabama went and lost to Michigan. And all of us were looking around going, this was the team you wanted in the playoff. Last I checked, Jalen Milroe was on that field. So was Ryan Williams and a bunch of other starters. I mean, it's almost like you just weren't a playoff team this year. Like, sorry, guys.
So but it's fascinating. This playoff system is fascinating. But I do like I would do like your suggestion about moving it to 6 teams though, because I do like that.
Six is a good number.
Yeah, it's a good number.
I think 6 teams this year. You would have had Oregon, Georgia, probably Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and then you'd have a debate over Ohio State and Tennessee.
Yeah, which I think is good. I think that's a good.
And again, I know that would have been, a difficult debate to have. Yeah. SMU could have been in that fold, but then they lost. Yeah. Again, those are difficult debates to have, but there's always a difficult debate. It doesn't matter unless you make it a 100-team field. And even then, like the NCAA tournament has 68 teams, right? They expanded with the 4 bubble teams. Fine, whatever. Guess what? There are controversial teams that get left out every year where you're like, man, this team got screwed. And then they go win the NIT and you're like, this team got screwed. They should have been in the NCAA tournament. So
yeah, it happens. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't like 60, you would think 64 was a good amount of teams. And people
complain about that. The reports, they're going to expand that too. It's
exactly. So, you know what I mean? Like, no one's ever happy. It is what it is. No one's ever happy.
They will never be happy. The FCS has 24 playoff teams. I guarantee you within the next 20 years, we will have that in power college football.
Crazy.
Guaranteed.
It is crazy. Hey, Spencer, I appreciate you being on. Before I let you go, man, again, let our listeners know how to catch you, how to catch you on social media, how to catch your content.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at McLaughlin CFB if you want to shoot me a note and tell me I'm great or that I'm a buffoon. Either way, I don't really care. I enjoy the engagement. And I host Locked On College Football on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth. And if you want to stay up to date with the Oregon Ducks or just find out what's going on with those teams over in Eugene, then that show is also on podcast platforms of your choice and on YouTube. And I also do play-by-play for the Southern Utah University Thunderbirds, mostly on ESPN+. So I'm around.
Awesome. Hey, I'll tell you, Spencer, you're awesome. I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you. I try to be.
Yeah. Hey, Spencer, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. That was fun.
All right, take it easy, all right? Oh man, that's awesome. Awesome. Spencer was dope. He was dope. I knew it was good by getting Spencer on. Locked on college football. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On College Football as well. Spencer is amazing. I hope Ohio State does. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you guys. If you're watching this and you're an Ohio State Buckeye, I'm not rooting for you guys. It's not. I'm a Michigan fan. I can't root for you guys. But I won't lie, you guys are favorite. You have more, like Spencer said, you are way more talented than Notre Dame. But go Fighting Irish. Go Fighting Irish. All right, y'all. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and other podcast platforms. Just search the Urban Sports Scene. Also follow us on X at Urban Sports Scene, IG, and TikTok at Urban Sports Scene, and like our Urban Sports Scene Facebook page. You're on YouTube right now. Hit that red subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000. We're close. We're approaching. Hit that red subscribe button right now. And also like this video. It does great for the algorithm. And later on, if you want to comment, feel free to comment. You can also check us out on our website, which is www.urbansportscene.com. All right, man. I appreciate y'all for pulling up. You guys have been dope. Anyway, you've been listening to the Urban Sports Scene. For ages, Yeti Deuces. Your boy Wole is out.
Peace.